Hello, my name is Lucas. This is A Bit of Lit, and I want to talk to you about The Stand by Stephen King, which is his longest book. I read the unabridged version. The second time he released it with more stuff because there was such a clamoring for more in this world because it's one of, if not his most popular book, apparently. I have a lot of questions about that, but um, I did not enjoy this book. It's bloated, so bloated. I might have enjoyed it more had I read the abridged version, the original release. However, I've never really enjoyed anything by Stephen King except The Shining, which, in my opinion, is a comedy because it's so not scary the way it's written. And this is not scary at all, despite being extremely relevant to our times, 2020, with the coronavirus. This has a superflu that is a bioweapon created by the US government that accidentally gets released and has a virulence or effectiveness of killing people. Case death fatality rate, CDF, I think, yeah, of 99.4% of humanity. So pretty much everybody dies except a handful of people, essentially, in the grand scheme of the amount of humans that are alive. Just a handful of people survive, and we've got a cast of characters from all different walks of life, and it ends up being a battle of good versus evil, sort of infused with biblical language and ideas, because our wonderful cast of characters, while slowly picked off as they make their way to Boulder, Colorado, and fight the good fight against Randall Flagg, who is this supernatural being based out of Las Vegas, who is a tyrant. Yeah, I mean, it's just a biblical sort of kind of craziness, and it goes on too long. If you ask me, the first part I think is the best part because it's when things are really starting to fall apart, and we get to see the effects of that, and we get to see the sort of shock waves, the rippling effects, because there's sort of a bounce back of, oh, there's another sort of miniature epidemic. We get to see how other people died who survived the first flu crisis and then died in different ways. Now, the reason I'm not really a fan of this is just multifaceted. There are some interesting things that happen, right? I mean, we've got people not treating this like they should. Their perfect example, there is this college group that releases some notification saying, some kind of poster to say your government is lying to you. This is a lie. There's no vaccine coming out. Blah, 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 blah. Meeting at 7 o'clock. Unite everybody. And it's just, you're saying that because they don't know, but they're saying there's 70% or more higher, 70% or higher chance of dying from this. Let's all get together and unite against. Of course, there are reporters trying to tell the truth, and they need to be silenced by the government. And there's a lot of riots and things like that going on in America in this book during all of this in LA and all other kinds of places, and everybody's getting mowed down by the military. Hardly relevant, to modern America. Just a fantasy, couldn't possibly happen unless you had some kind of buffoon as leadership. I don't know. It just doesn't seem likely. Anyway, the reason I don't like this book is the way Stephen King writes. I'm just not a fan of the way he writes. There's way too many details, and especially when characters are introduced, you get this whole backstory to them, and it's so, to me, it's just so clunky constantly. And you get to learn their name right away. It's like you can't just have some mystery to it and learn organically about who they are. I mean, yes, you get to learn a little bit more. There is still some construction. Someone's using a hammer to hammer something. Okay, that's fine. That's all right. It's not a jackhammer. It's not 7 jackhammers. All. I've been having a rough day, and I've been reading The Stand, which I'm not a fan of. I finished The Stand, which made me happy. And I'm in the lead for my reading race for August, which makes me also happy. However, the jackhammers have been driving me crazy. And that's all I've got to say about that. Okay, so the way he introduces the characters constantly, the way people talk to each other like they've never spoken to a human being ever in their life, like they've only read about human interaction. My God, can I speak English? I don't know. And I also don't really like Randall Flagg. I mean, he is by far the most interesting part to read about. He is kind of interesting, actually. I do sort of like him, but I don't like this story of good versus evil with a supernatural being. We've already got the pandemic. You don't need to add more. And also, there, these characters, they have these dreams and premonitions, and they're all dreaming the same thing, and they're all imagining, oh, there's going to be this big conflict in Boulder, Colorado, which is where they go to establish a free zone before they inevitably go to Las Vegas to take Randall down. And then, everything blows up from there. Let's put it that way. Yeah, I mean, if this was about humans and how they would respond to near collapse of civilization and the near extinction of humanity, and struggling with good versus evil in that way, without any of this nonsense with Randall Flagg. I think he's in the Dark Tower series, right? I've never read it, but he might be actually interesting in that because it's fantasy based, which I guess this book technically is. I don't think we need him in this book. Yes, he's real big and bad and scary in many ways and kind of awful. But yeah, I think it would have been better if it was just humans. There was just this bioweapon, and now we gotta deal with that. There would still be the problem of Stephen King's terrible, terrible writing. But I think I would like this book a little bit more if there wasn't this supernatural element to it. I just think it's completely unnecessary. You've already got such an amazing and horrifying event. You don't need to add one supernatural. Where are the others? Did they all die too? How come they can't use, if so, how come they can't use their powers to stop themselves from, having contact with this kind of... Yeah, I don't like Randall Flagg in this. He's the most interesting part. But I think the first part is the best part because it's, you get, like I said, you get to see it all come down. And then the next 2 parts are just craziness and boring, mostly, in my opinion. Now, this book, incredibly long, about as long, if probably longer than the whole Lord of the Rings series, which gets a shout out. I've been holding it to that page. And I'd like to read that part to you. The way leads ever on. What? It's a line from Tolkien, she said. The Lord of the Rings. I've always thought of it as a sort of gateway to adventure. Less adventure, the better, Larry said, but almost unwillingly he knew what she meant. And then we're going to skip a couple paragraphs. It was a walk. Yeah, see it right there? Okay, yeah, cool. Yeah, okay. It was a walk that Larry Underwood never forgot. He found himself thinking that she hadn't been so wrong to quote Tolkien at that. Tolkien with his mythic land seen through the lens of time and half-mad, half-exalted imaginings, peopled with elves and ents and trolls and orcs. There were none of those in New York, but so much had changed, so much was out of joint, that it was impossible not to think of it in terms of fantasy. And so there's that, I read that he wanted this to be like his Lord of the Rings. And in some ways it is, Big fantasy story, I guess. Not a very good one, if you ask me. Anyway, I'd like to quote one more thing that really annoys me relating to the premonitions. What interests me about these dreams, because like I said before, they're having dreams that tell of a future event. And this is almost halfway through the book. The other one was about a quarter of the way. What interests me about these dreams, he went on, is that they seem to presage some future struggle. We seem to be getting cloudy pictures of a protagonist and an antagonist, an adversary, if you like. If that's so, it may be like looking at a plane on which we're scheduled to fly and getting a bellyache. We're being given the means to help shape our own futures, perhaps. A kind of fourth-dimensional free will, the chance to choose in advance of events. And, yeah. This premonition thing as well, not a fan of it. Doesn't need to be supernatural. I don't mind supernatural books. I don't mind fantasy, I just think it was fine. Just the bioweapon thing. Humanity's falling apart. Civilization is crumbling. How do we deal with good and evil in times like those? By helping each other, mostly. But we don't get that, really. I mean, we do, of course, obviously. That is what the good people do. But we have to deal with all the nonsense of this mystical, magical, mythical place. That's all I've got to say. Read it at your own expense. It's long. And if you like Stephen King, you'll probably like it. If you don't, then never look at it. Don't bother, okay? That's all I've got to say. I'm not going to tell you it's bad. I think it is. But that's for you to decide, Maybe you enjoy his characters. Maybe you enjoy the simplicity of the themes in a way. Maybe you like his ideas. I like his ideas. But, yeah, just not for me. I knew that coming in. I will be reading another Stephen King book this month so that I can show everybody what's what. I will be reading It, another extremely long Stephen King book. And I will have a lot to say about that. So, au revoir.